Hello and welcome to our book launch for the Young Reader adaptation of The Paper Daughters of Chinatown. I am Heather B. Moore.
And I'm Allison Hong Merrill.
We're really excited to be here tonight, and we actually have some fun information coming up first. So first of all, we have a teacher's guide that is on our publisher's website, and we're also going to be adding it to our own website. And we'll share it to Facebook and that kind of thing. But if you're a teacher or if you're in a book club or even a parent, this is just kind of a great additional resource when you have questions about what is this book about and will my child enjoy this type of story. And there's also pictures included and a really cool map and different things like different or additional resources as well. And we also have a giveaway. And this giveaway is for two of Cameron. Well, there'll be two winners, and one winner will receive the Orphan Keeper, which is the young reader version of the original book, and one winner will receive the Rent Collector, which is also a young reader edition of the original book. And I've read the original books. I haven't read the young reader editions, but I'm really excited to read them. So. And then our final thing, I also wanted to bring up that the way that you get entered is just comment on any of the platforms where this is streaming, and we will choose a winner on Monday. So you have a few days to comment or to share the post and have friends and family comment as well. Another thing too is if you want to contact us for school visits or book club requests, you can email us directly through our website, or you can reach out to publicity@shadowmountain.com. So we're really excited to share anything about this book that you feel like your classroom or your library would be interested in learning. All right, let's get to the good stuff. Allison.
Yes. So The Paper Daughters of Chinatown, adapted for Young Readers edition. This book is, in my writing career, I have to say, the project that I'm really, really proud of. First of all, the story is powerful. The message is really remarkable. And they're strong, resilient female characters in this story. And I get to work on this project with Heather. I mean, hello, Heather, right? It's like such a great honor working with her. And so Heather doesn't produce bad things at all, and so obviously this book is great because there's Heather in it. I mean, her hard work in this, and I'm just really, really grateful to have this honor working with her on this story.
Well, thank you. And Allison is an amazing writer, and she was just wonderful to work with. She digs really deep into the characters and into the settings, which I have to work a little harder at. So it was wonderful to work with her as well.
Well, we're happy with this end result. This book is amazing. If I can say that myself, I'm really proud of this project. And so we would like to introduce you to this story a little bit. And Heather, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Chinese Exclusion Act? Yes.
Yes. So this is kind of the foundation of why this story even took place. So Tianfu Wu and Dolly Cameron, who are the main characters in the book, this is a true story. It reads like a novel, so it's called historical fiction. But in 1882, the U.S. Congress signed the Exclusion Act to keep all Chinese out of America. And this was the first Exclusion Act that ever targeted a specific ethnic group. And it was so interesting because this is actually a billboard, or I guess they call it a flyer, that they would paste up all over San Francisco. And they were literally celebrating the signing of this act, which is kind of hard to read about. But what this did is it then created a situation where you have all these Chinese men, mostly men that were already living in San Francisco and all up and down the Western coast, because they had come over for the gold mining. They had come over to build the railroads and do a lot of these jobs that were helping their families back home in China. But then the women were coming over, and so there was these gangs that were called the Tongs or the Highbinders saw this as an opportunity that they could get women or girls over into San Francisco, because the Chinese men were not allowed to marry anyone outside their race. They couldn't marry anyone unless they were Chinese descent. So that's where the term paper daughters comes from, is that they would bring these women and young girls over under false names, and they would tell the government or the immigration agent, oh, her father already lives here, so she has family here, or she's engaged to be married to this man. And so that's how they would create this kind of false paperwork to get the girls into the country in the first place. And so this is actually what happened to our main character,
Tianfu. And so thank you so much for the introduction, Heather, and to help us understand why is it that during that time there were Chinese women and girls brought to America under false identities. And so a little bit of background information on the side of China. So at the same time, when there were the U.S. government here in America back in the 1860s, there were the Civil War, right? And slavery was abolished.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so now slavery became illegal, but there were still landowners who needed helpers to work on the field, on the land. And so they needed to find people to do those work. And so Chinese people at the time, well, they didn't know about the abolishment of slavery in America, but China itself had gone through years, decades of war with the Western powers, right? The British and also the Japanese and some other foreign countries who tried to break into China.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people had gone through war after war after war. And you know what happened to a country when the people constantly live in war-like situation, and it was just devastating. And so a lot of people lost their livelihood. And so that's why a lot of the Chinese men at the time, they would travel overseas to find work, and they would go alone, and then they would send money back home to their families.
Right.
So that's why there were Chinese men coming to America because there was the gold rush in San Francisco, and the people in China, they heard about it, and so the men would just come.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time they got here, there was no gold, and so they worked on the railroad, and they stayed. They didn't go home. They stayed, but because they were men and they needed women in their lives. And so because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, they could not marry any women outside their own race. So they had to find a way to get Chinese women to come to San Francisco.
Right.
They could marry them, and that's why these women were traded for money. They became, this is really sad. This is a sad part of the history, is women and girls were treated as products. They were treated as items, and they were sold and brought over to San Francisco, Chinatown. And so that's how this woman here, we're seeing the picture of her. Her name is Tianfu, and her father sold her. So Tianfu was born in China, in Zhejiang province. When she was 6 years old, her father sold her to pay for his gambling debt. And so Tianfu was traded over and over again by adults. They bought her, they traded her for money, and then eventually she was brought over to America, to San Francisco, Chinatown. And because she was so young, she was only 6 years old, she was forced to do domestic chores, like she would clean and cook and babysit, and that was mostly her job.
Right. And so anyway, well, let's just go back to Tianfu's picture really quick. So she was seen by some other adults in her neighborhood, and they could tell that she was being abused. And so they actually reported her to a mission home that was ran by the Presbyterian Church, and there's other mission homes as well in San Francisco, one that was ran by the Methodist Church. And so Dolly Cameron, she is another character in the story. She's the other main character, and we get to know her because she comes to the mission home. This is actually after Tien Fu has been at the mission home for maybe a year or two. And when Dolly arrives to teach sewing classes, Tien Fu does not like her at first. And she decides that she's another adult that she's not going to trust. And Tien Fu just either avoids her or kind of misbehaves or is a little bit naughty in class and gives her a hard time. So really the story ends up evolving to, without giving away endings or anything, is that these two finally learn to trust each other, and it really turns into a beautiful story of friendship and growth. This is what the mission home looked like when Tien Fu arrived. And you've probably heard about the San Francisco earthquakes in 1906 and then the subsequent fire. And so the mission home was burned pretty bad. And so it was rebuilt 2 years later. And this is what it looks like today. And Allison and I were able to go there in March and visit. We had both been before, but it was fun to go together. And anyway, so I'll let Allison share a little bit more.
So Tien Fu and Donaldina Cameron, they became lifelong friends. And this part of the story really touched me when I was researching and working on the manuscript, because they team up together. So Donaldina Cameron, she will go on rescuing missions. She would answer to the calls of those people who tip her and say, hey, there was a girl wherever, people will come and tell her information about this girl who needed help. And then she would just go. Now imagine back then, okay, and Donaldina Cameron did not speak Chinese, and she had a big heart. She was a loving, kind, and generous person. She wanted to give everything she had to help these girls to have a better life. And she dedicated her own life to that mission, to that call, right? But because she did not speak Chinese, so whenever she went on a rescue mission, she had to have help. She needed to have an interpreter. And that's why Tien Fu got into the picture. She got into the story. She helped Donaldina Cameron as her interpreter. And then she will also go to court with her, to help interpret. And so they worked together for years and years and years, until both of them retired. And but the thing is, when they were working together, they had rescued over 3,000 Chinese women. Yeah, women and girls who needed help. And this part of the story, when I said it really touched me, is this: they were not police. They were not trained to be police, and they were not trained to be social workers. They were not trained in any way to be a professional team to go out, and rescue girls and women. But they did it anyway because it was in their nature. They care about other people, and they wanted other people to live a good life. And when they saw that there were other women and girls who were badly treated, they knew that was wrong. That should not have happened. And so even though they were ordinary citizens, they stepped up and they spoke up and they showed up for other people who needed help. And that is the spirit of the story, is that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who I am. If I can contribute my talent, my time, or my energy to make other people's life better, I can do it. I don't need to wait till I'm fully trained. No, you just go and do what you can. And that's what I learned from this story, is ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And that is the story of Tien Fu Wu and Donaldina Cameron.
Yes, and I just love that aspect of the story, because I remember just feeling inspired by sometimes even some of these girls like Tien Fu, they were so young, yet they just had this very resilient spirit, and they had gone through so much, but yet they're able to use their experiences to turn around and help someone else as well. If anyone has questions that's listening, we're happy to take a few minutes to answer questions. I did have someone email me who wasn't able to watch, and she just wanted to know kind of a little bit about our research, maybe not the process, but kind of like how we, if there's any fun things that we came across. So Allison and I were able to listen to audio recordings of an interview with Tianfu Wu and also one with Dolly Cameron. And so it was really neat to hear their voices. Stanford University has a digital archive, and they had interviewed with an author back when they were both alive named, what's her name? Mildred Martin. And it was very, especially listening to Tianfu, her personality just comes through, just very spunky, very humorous. Like she was telling things and then kind of giggling about them, things that she used to do and things she used to get away with. And she's a little bit mischievous. And so that just really opened our eyes to what her true personality was, so that we could kind of fashion her character from day one all the way through the arc of the book.
Yes, exactly.
We really like discovering Allison.
Yes, so I really enjoyed this one part about Tianfu Wu and Donaldina Cameron, how when they first met, Tianfu did not like Dolly at all. And so she was young and she was immature and rebellious at the time. And there was this one incident that every time I think about it, I just thought, oh, she is so feisty and funny. And this is the story. So Tianfu Wu was maybe about 8 years old, 8 or 10, I don't know exactly, but she was young. And she had this roommate, in the mission home, who said, hey, Tianfu, you want to go to the kitchen? Because their bedrooms were upstairs. And the roommate suggested that they get up really early, meaning like in the middle of the night, right? And said, let's go to the kitchen downstairs and let's cook up, whatever midnight snack. And so Tianfu was like, yeah, let's do it. And so the two of them went downstairs to the kitchen, and they were laughing because they were joking and chatting and laughing and having a good time cooking their midnight snacks. And then their laughter was so loud that Donaldina Cameron heard them. And so she went downstairs to the kitchen and sent them to bed. And she was maybe a little bit in Tianfu's mind, Dolly was too harsh. And so Tianfu was really angry at Dolly. So she stomped and she went back to her bedroom and she opened her bedroom window, and then she stripped naked, took off her clothes and stood in front of the bedroom window naked, hoping to catch a cold, and then would turn into pneumonia, and then she would die. She was hoping to die so that her ghost will come back and haunt Dolly Cameron. And when I heard that story, I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl, can you believe it? She was just so funny, but so she was full of personality. And then, but later on, from that kind of relationship she had with Dolly, to later on they became partners and they worked together with others. And I thought that was just a beautiful transition, a beautiful transformation of friendship. Because later on they were, when Donaldina Cameron passed away, Tianfu was the one by her side.
Right.
And so it was just a beautiful, beautiful story to me of friendship and loyalty and service.
I love that too. And another part of her interview, she talked about how she didn't think that someone could truly care about her or love her, because it took her a while to realize she had been sold by her father, because she just thought she was going on an adventure to visit her grandmother, because that's what he told her. And then when she finally got to America, she realized, I'm probably never going to go back. I mean, at first she was hoping and dreaming she could go back. So once that kind of things fell into place about what had really happened to her and what her parents, mostly her father, had done to her, and the way that she was being treated by other adults, she just decided that she was not lovable. And when we decide that, then it's hard for us to turn around and care about someone else. And so that's why she said this herself. That's why she was so defiant, until she saw just constant examples from Dolly Cameron and the other mission home staff and some of the other interpreters in the home. She saw them just constantly serving. And even when the day was hard, or even when an argument would break out, or someone spilled rice all over the floor, that was one of the things we read about too, is that they would forgive each other and move on. And so seeing this kind of things over and over and over finally became, I guess, entrenched in her soul. And she really began to believe that she could love, and more important, that she could be loved. And so once she felt like, these staff members truly loved her and truly cared about her, she wasn't just a job for them to take care of her, then that's when she also decided that she wanted to also give back to that and become an interpreter and work at the mission home and help and serve others that had been in her situation.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, well, thank you, everybody. Just as a reminder, we are doing a giveaway for 2 of Cameron Wright's young reader books. And we would love to hear from you, either in the comments. We'll go around and we'll check the different places this is live streaming, and answer any questions that you have. And also reach out to us if you're interested in doing a book club, or we could do Zoom to a classroom or a library, or if it's close enough, we can come visit in person as well.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody.
That's tonight. So fun.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.